Before I get started on today's video, I really wanted to start off by paying respects to my good friend Roby Mitchell, aka Dr. Fit, who sadly passed away a few days ago in Amarillo, Texas. He was an extraordinary man, extraordinary physician, and he'll be missed a lot by me and many others who he's helped through a very long and distinguished career. Today, though, I'm not at my usual beach at Byron Bay in Northern Rivers area of Australia. I'm up in northern Queensland, where the rainforest meets the reef, and this beach is called Junkakara, which is now called Cape Tribulation, because this is the beach. It's a stunning beach where Captain Cook arrived on his boat Endeavour in 1770 and decided to moor off the beach and hit a reef, caused extensive damage to the Endeavour and required a lot of work to fix it. So it was where he said all his trouble started, so called this place Cape Tribulation. And of course, it's a very unique place because on this side of me is rainforest, which is actually part of a wet tropics World Heritage Park. And this side, you can see how close. I mean, the rainforest comes down to the beach. And this side is the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. So it truly is where the rainforest meets the reef, and it's very unique. And I've had an extraordinary amount of fun exploring this area, and it's so rich in animal life and some very rare plants. But what I wanted to talk about today was a summary of some interesting things in the health news this week and a little bit about Bitcoin. So if you want to know about melatonin, if you want to know about visceral fat and how your waist circumference can help you predict your future risk of disease, and you want to know about long persisters with viruses or chronic viral illnesses, hang on through the musical break and we're going to get started very soon. First of all, I want to look at long persisters, and this was a study looking at people who have got a lot of symptoms which remain after a viral infection. And we're thinking now that these people actually have persistent viruses, and we've known that for a long time with things like Epstein-Barr virus, which are now been well documented to persist in people and cause long-term symptoms like chronic fatigue, but also are now being implicated in many long-term degenerative chronic diseases like multiple cancers and like some neurodegenerative disorders like multiple sclerosis. So obviously we're still trying to work out the reasons for these people that get these chronic persistent states, these long haulers. But obviously for me, my priority is to make sure that I minimize things in my life which decrease my immune system and increase or optimize the inherent systems that nature has given me. And I've discussed these in videos that I did with Roby. Things like iodine and thyroid function and zinc and vitamin A and vitamin D and selenium, which optimize my own immune system. And in fact, there was a recent study out too that I'll probably talk about tomorrow, showing how the same thing actually works with parasites in our gut, where enterocytes of our gut are the first alarm system that the gut has parasites, and then mobilizes what's called the inflammasome, which is the immune cells which help knock down the levels of parasites. So we're learning more and more about the intelligent design of the body and its way it's there to protect us from these microbes. And so minimizing things which weaken that system and optimizing those systems through the things I just talked about are going to give us our best chance of minimizing this chronic persister, this long hauler state. Second thing I want to talk about was melatonin. Now melatonin's been in the medical research recently because previously we've shown that melatonin, which is the hormone that we release, that's made from serotonin, that we release from our pineal gland, and its production is started by seeing the early morning infrared light, the early morning red light with the sunrise, and its secretion is started by the light change in the evening, where we start to secrete the melatonin to put us to sleep. And we've known for a while from some research a few months ago that melatonin actually helps reduce the cytokine storm that you can get from acute infections, dampening down that immune system response, which makes us feel terrible when we've got a virus. But recent studies just came out a couple of days ago shows that melatonin's also directly antiviral, has an ability to kill viruses. So melatonin, not only great for our sleep, not only great for reducing the cytokine storm, not only great for optimizing our microbiome, improving mitochondrial function, and reducing our risk of cancer by destroying cancer cells, also is directly antiviral, which is why I'm obsessed about wearing my blue light blocking glasses at night to make sure I don't switch off my melatonin production from my pineal gland, why I also have circadian lights in my house so that the blue light from my LED lights that I used to have don't switch off my melatonin production, because the same receptors that I've got in my eyes to detect the light are also in my skin, melanopsin receptors. So if I've got my blue light blocking glasses on, but I'm exposed to blue light from my LED lights in my roof, I'm still going to switch off my melatonin production and I'm going to lose all the benefits of the melatonin. So if you're interested in looking at the lights that I use for my ceiling or my blue light blocking glasses, they're on my mitochondrialyoga.com website. I think that's incredibly important if you value the production of your own melatonin. And the third thing I want to talk about was a recent study looking at visceral fat, which is the white fat that we store around our abdomens. And just remember, there's a huge difference between white fat and brown fat. White fat is where we store calories, store food for another time, and brown fat is the metabolic fat where we actually use it to burn fat to produce heat and energy. But it's the visceral fat which accumulates around our waist, and the more visceral fat that you're going to get, it increases your risk of diabetes, heart disease and cancer, and also has hormonal effects because the enzyme in the white fat, the visceral fat, is called and aromatase converts testosterone to estrogen, so it starts off this snowball of hormonal effects. So it's very important that we keep our visceral fat to a minimum. How do you know if you've got too much visceral fat and therefore going to increase your risk of cancer and heart disease and diabetes and hormonal disruption? Well, you can measure your waist circumference, and Harvard Medical School have shown that for women 35 inches and for men 40 inches is the upper limit of how much visceral fat that we've got. And of course you're measuring at your waist. So I'm 6'6" tall, but my waist obviously is underneath my ribs and above my pelvis. So it doesn't matter your bone structure or your height, your waist should be about this level. So it's a reasonably good way, better than the body mass index, of predicting our disease risk. So measuring your waist circumference is a really good idea to know if you've accumulated too much white visceral fat and you want to start getting in some cold water with me, not so cold up here in northern Queensland, to start the cold thermogenesis process, which helps us convert white fat to brown fat. And the last thing I want to talk about today, because it's been in the news a lot, is Bitcoin, because I wrote an article recently. I just have to be careful where I walk at the moment because, as you can see, I'm going through some mangroves and they have a lot of roots coming out of the sand. I'll be past them in a second. So I wrote an article recently reporting the science that we have 100 trillion cells in the human body, and each of those cells has 100 trillion atoms inside it. Now that's interesting when you come to the world debt, which the IMF, the International Monetary Foundation, has estimated to now be over 100 trillion US dollars that we're in debt. So that's a lot of debt that the world is in. And how big is a trillion? Well, I came across some recent data showing that if you got a US dollar bill and you laid them end to end, then a trillion would get you from the earth to the sun and back 50 times. So $190 trillion of, you can see some of these beautiful mangrove trees here. $190 trillion would get you to the sun and back several thousand times, I calculated. I'll put up the exact figure, I can't remember the exact, I think it was 9,500 times that it gets you to the sun and back from the earth if you lay dollar bills end to end. That's a lot of dollar bills. And of course the beauty about Bitcoin is that you can't print anymore. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. And people go, well, I can't afford a Bitcoin. It's only 21 million of them. Look how many people in the world. But what we forget is that each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million Satoshis. So no one I know, and certainly not me, is buying Bitcoin. We're buying Satoshis, otherwise known as stacking sats, because Bitcoin price is going up as people realize that it's a protection from us against the hyperinflation caused by printing of trillions and trillions of more fiat money. All right, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace and love to Roby. I'll see you soon.